Okay, so this is our group meeting for week 5, and it's about group cohesiveness, conflict, and technology. So the first question here is going to be, what is cohesiveness? And for me, I had actually took a definition out of a dictionary, and that is that cohesiveness is being united, working together effectively. Monica?
I wrote that when I think of cohesiveness, I think of groups bringing ideas and thoughts together, working toward a specific goal or outcome. I also explained that that cohesiveness is the group therapy analog to relationship and individual therapy. I feel that cohesiveness builds the relationships in groups and it creates a flow. And I also feel that cohesiveness is like it can create a comfortable setting and a sense of belonging, of feeling valued and accepted within a group.
Tanya?
I agree with Monica. I think that cohesiveness is just that feeling of being united and sharing a common goal with someone. And when you kind of have a common goal, then people will come together a little bit more easier, despite, their background in education or lifestyle or life skills, as long as they have the same goal that they can work on together. It can form kind of a union, and people have something to work towards together, and they'll work together better.
Carrie Ann?
I looked up some synonyms for cohesiveness, and I found words like unity, bonding, connection, alliance, fellowship, and it's also a sense of commitment. And when people are in a group where they are feeling like they are validated and their beliefs are valid and accurate, then often that cohesion will create future interactions that are free of conflict.
Holly?
Yeah, I agree with all that. And to summarize, so what I put was the cohesiveness is the building elements of a group and creates a bond within the group in terms of similarity and goal making. People who hold the same values, beliefs, and goals within a group will less likely experience conflict, whereas different opinions, goal structure, and thought process will most likely endure conflict, which will alter the group cohesiveness. Group cohesiveness includes interpersonal attraction, group pride, and commitment working in the group.
Okay, so for question number 2, it was, why is cohesiveness necessary for a group to function therapeutically? And what I had was that cohesive groups have better attendance, participation, and mutual support, and will defend the groups. But for our group, like in terms of for our cohort in Kamloops, that we have good cohesion as a group, because there have been times where I needed to do schoolwork for just myself and I wouldn't have done it, but when it's been something like a group project, it sort of forced me to do it because I know it's for the group. So because we're so cohesive and you and working to one thing, I tend to do it more so than I will if it's just for myself. Tanya?
I really can relate to that, where you sometimes may not want to feel like you would get it done individually, but you don't want to let your peers down, so you work extra hard at making sure that you do the work so that you can be helpful to your peers. And I find also that if you let your peers know that you're really not just feeling it or into it, then they also encourage you and they lift you up, and it's like everybody's working together for the same thing. And it's, yeah, that's what I think that's about.
Carrie Ann?
Cohesiveness can create feelings of safety, warmth, comfort, belonging, and acceptance within the group. And that then fosters an environment where people can take risks and they can self-reflect and they can do personal exploration.
Holly?
I feel it is necessary to function therapeutically because once a group has strong cohesion, there is less conflict, and the roles and responsibilities between each member will come easier rather than feeling isolated or marginalized. I feel some factors that impact group cohesiveness would be trust, having similar views in terms of values, goals, and beliefs, being open to new members, having positive past experiences related to groups, as well as having a strong and motivated leader to help bring participants together. Having a strong cohesiveness within a group enhances the feelings of belonging, as well as creating a group dynamic of bonding and trust.
Monica?
I felt that cohesiveness is necessary for a group to function therapeutically because it is good for the group to build their relationships together. I also felt that it helps build rapport with each other. I also found that in the readings from Lom, he states that when group members have a sense of we-ness, they feel valued. And I also wrote down that groups that are valued have been shown to have a higher rate of attendance, participation, and support with.
Good. Okay, question number 3. What can you do as both a group participant and group leader facilitator to help foster group cohesiveness? And so I picked 2 things. The first one I went with was to use individual strengths. So that's, for me, that was like when we had our MedSurg infograph, we used someone that was really good at computer skills and was creative to do the actual putting together of the information, and the rest of us did the researching to find the information. And the second thing is to celebrate success. And I feel like we've done that as a Kamloops group. Every time we've passed an exam or passed a course, we've all kind of done a little congratulations and woohoo kind of thing, and sort of just celebrated that we've made it another milestone. Carrie Ann?
So to foster group cohesion, I feel like being courageous is important, like maybe taking some risks, expressing yourself. Also, I think that listening fully and being present to other group members is really important and creates that environment where people feel safe and they feel seen and heard. And the other part that I suggested was being able to self-reflect on your intentions before you speak. I think that that is important to create that environment where people feel that there's a safety and acceptance and unity in the group.
So I felt as a group participant, I believe obviously it's important to work together as a team, sharing ideas. And if you have like a different idea, I think it's like Carrie Ann said, it's important to stand up and just like kind of voice your opinion, just so that, if there is diverse ideas that it can be explored. Participation is a huge one as well in supporting one another. I also do believe, as a leader, I feel that incorporating rules and expectations so that we're setting the path for success rather than failure, and obviously instilling positivity as well.
Monica?
As a group leader, I would help foster group cohesiveness by establishing a therapeutic relationship, working together as a team, communicating openly with each other, providing feedback, asking for feedback from team members, and showing appreciation from the team's success and achievements. Creating an environment where one can have trust, self-disclosure, empathy, and acceptance is an important factor when creating a cohesive group. As a participant, I would help foster group cohesiveness by engaging with all team members equally, accepting them for who they are, understanding their point of view, including their opinions and ideas in the group setting.
Tanya? Tanya, your microphone?
Thanks. I think that everything that I was going to say has already been said, but one thing that did stand out for me in our readings was that acceptance of others in the group can sometimes be helpful to some people because they feel as though that they're really accepted and really heard and really valued rather than just towards the group leader, because the group leader is almost paid to be there or it's part of their job. So connecting as a group and the acceptance is very important.
Okay, number 4. Conflict is present in all groups. Discuss one positive role of conflict in a group and provide an example. If conflict is necessary for a group to function therapeutically, or sorry, is conflict necessary for a group to function therapeutically? And so I had that conflict can help improve interpersonal relationships. And one of the places where I noticed this, again, for our group was when we first started doing the pharmacology case studies. Towards the end of doing them, there was a bit of a conflict about how we were doing them, where we were splitting them all up into sections instead of doing it all together. And when we sort of talked and discussed that, it made me aware that other people in our group learn differently and that some of them would benefit from having sort of more discussions about them, and others are okay with just doing it on their own and learning at their own sort of pace. So I think it helped in that if we hadn't had the conflict, that never would have come to light, and I never would have known that somebody in the group needed to do things differently. Holly?
That's actually a really good example, Angelina. And I definitely agree with you. I think that people learn from conflict. I think positive conflict can be constructive, and instead of it being hostile, frustrating, and having a terrible outcome, it can actually produce something beneficial. Learning opportunities can come from conflict, can produce new ideas, solve problems that have been happening for a while, allows people to get creative, and critical thinking can occur. One positive role would be for managers to focus on team goals rather than individual goals in meetings. So the team leader can encourage conflict resolution by having everyone speak their minds and be open with the group. I came across an article that when conflict is avoided or it is a win-lose battle approach, conflict will not be resolved. It'll cause tension and low morale. So the leader should encourage healthy solutions for all team members to essentially have a say and discuss conflict.
Monica?
I believe that conflict can help a group function therapeutically, as it can help overcome challenges within the group. For instance, when there's deadlines on assignments, it can create a lot of pressure, and people may take their frustrations on each other and feel the need to maybe get other people to get their ends meet as well, met as well throughout the assignment. I feel that situations like these can prompt the group to find solutions and be creative in solving future conflicts. Yeah.
Tanya?
I think that having different perspectives allows people to stretch and grow and learn more about why they have the perspective that they do or where that belief is coming from, and it allows for growth in all areas of life. And I agree with Holly about the win-win, win-lose, or lose-win. Without the win-win, there are people who may feel left out or discouraged in some way, and the loss of power. And I think that the conflict just allows everybody to grow and work together, and that's also allows for more cohesiveness.
Carrie Ann?
So So one positive role of conflict, I agree with some of the things that all of you said, particularly Tanya suggested that it does help people find their strengths and learn new skills during conflict. And I think that sometimes it can reveal aspects of people that maybe they didn't realize that they had those strengths until the conflict comes up. So I think that can be really positive as well. Conflict can be really good for promoting growth and creativity within the group.
Okay, so the next question is, discuss the impact that conflict can have on a group. So I said that if the group hasn't had time yet to become a cohesive unit, that conflict has the potential to split the group apart because they won't be forming and thinking like one entity and working towards one goal yet. Monica?
For this one, I felt that the group dynamic can shift. When there's conflict, it can either bring a group closer or break the group apart. Yeah, I think that when
Sorry,
that has a lot to do with how. Oh,
you're breaking up.
did it cut out?
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay, sorry. I was just saying that I feel that when a group breaks apart, I feel like that's where the group leader needs to step in and perhaps find a solution within the group if there is conflict.
Tanya?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, it's discuss the impact that conflict can have on a group.
Yeah, I think that both what you and Monica were saying about splitting the group and people wanting to leave and, you know, possibly even getting stuck in one's own perspective and the agitation. And I think that it would take a skilled group leader to try and pull that all back together at some point, but that there's definitely learning opportunity there, but that the division could become too ingrained.
Carrie Ann?
So the impact of conflict, I think a negative impact is that the group can really get stuck in that conflict and they might not be able to move on from that. A positive impact is that it can really build tolerance and trust within the group, and it can actually increase the cohesiveness. If you're able to overcome a conflict successfully, then the group might be even closer than before and even more productive.
Holly?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with everything that you guys have said. And I'm going to go back to your example, Angelina, when you talked about us in a group with the farm study cases and, you know, how everybody has like different learning abilities, like everyone learns differently and they work differently. So I think that when there was conflict like that, like a productive thing or a positive thing that came out of that was obviously we all kind of know each other a little bit better. We know how we each other work, and essentially that can make the group more productive, and it can also allow us to just enhance our problem solving skills. And you know, for next time we kind of know how the team works and we can kind of build on that. And I really think that like in most workplaces, like when conflict is like when conflict is an issue, I think that like taking a conflict resolution training program just so that it kind of helps with problem solving skills between like peers and colleagues, and just so that people kind of know how to deal with it, whether it's negative or positive.
Good. Next one is, how do you respond to conflict? A, in a personal situation, and B, in a professional situation. So for me, in a personal situation, it kind of depends on the person I'm having the conflict with. Some of the people, it's better if I sort of walk away and give them some time to cool off and then come back to it afterwards. Other people, it works better if I just kind of hash things out with them right there. In terms of professionally, if it's not the right time to approach someone, I will wait, but I always will approach them if I feel like there's some kind of a tension or something, because I just don't like to have a work environment like that where I feel like there's some kind of an issue and someone just isn't bringing it up. Tanya?
I'm the same for personal. I will sometimes wait, let it cool off, and sometimes I will hash it out right then and there. But professional, I think I've learned from, uh, a group hockey team where they have this rule that you wait 24 hours before you discuss your grievances with someone so that you have a chance to think on it, and maybe your perspective will change. Maybe you'll see things differently. So you wait the 24 hours and then you go back to the person. I also think that with the facilities that we work in, they actually have a procedure of how you deal with the grievances, and that would be something to take into consideration as we move forward in our profession.
Carrie Ann?
I think in an ideal situation, in a personal conflict, I would self-reflect. I would explore what the trigger was and the conflict. I would probably use a lot of tools to kind of self-soothe, so I wouldn't be reactive, and take some time to do that before engaging in, like a power struggle. I would also, what I always really try to do is actually to just listen, because often conflict can come from communication breakdown and someone just might not feel heard, and sometimes just listening can really diffuse conflict. In professional situations, I think it depends. Like sometimes I would take time to reflect because it might, I might be just triggered by something and I might just need some time to think it through. And other times there's been conflict at work. I'll just give you a quick example of some sort of staff splitting that was happening. And I just gathered everyone that was working on that team today and just said, this is the way that we were trained. This is the way I was trained. This is how you trained me. And I want us to follow that protocol because that best serves the patient. And so I was really, assertive. But I had like boundaries saying like this isn't working for me and this isn't working for the patient. But I didn't go into it like I was very calm and not upset, and it was really very successful. So I would just try to do that again.
Holly?
Yeah, so I tend to shy away from conflict. I'm not confrontational, and I actually get really anxious if I feel tension. But like Carrie, like you said, I think that it's a communication barrier, especially when it comes to personal situations. And I think that like just taking the time to listen and just, figuring out the why on each end and like just understanding why there was conflict in the first place, and 9 times out of 10 it's a communication error, and I find that happens quite a bit. um Stressful events, I usually like mask my emotions and I usually bottle everything in, so that's obviously not like a healthy way to deal with conflict. And in stressful situations sometimes I just like let it out, so that's something that obviously I have to work on. But in professional situations, I am that type of person who, I don't know, I sometimes am in the open fire of someone having a bad day, and I just take that approach, like how you said, Tanya, like just sit on it for a while, and you don't be reactive. And I think that is something that always helps, because that reactive behavior is something obviously that's not professional. You have to work with them at the end of the day. So I just think that communicating with kindness, maybe putting yourself in their shoes if they're having a bad day and just trying to see it from their perspective.
Monica?
Yeah, Holly, I'm much like you where I get a little bit anxious when it comes to conflict. That's something I don't do well with. I actually try to avoid it as much as I can. And it does end up kind of doesn't really work out for me on my end just because I do the same thing like you do where I bottle it in and hold back. When it comes to personal conflict, like when I read this question, I thought like more on a personal level in my life. How I deal with conflict is much different than how I deal with it on a professional level. Like in my personal life, conflict is something like I usually deal with it then and there, and like obviously use my emotions more. In a professional setting, I've honestly have never been in conflict at work other than one time a couple of months ago where a coworker, she had come up to me in front of all of my coworkers and customers and mentioned something really unprofessional to me, and I thought, okay, that's not right. And so instead of going to my employer, I went to the side, and I just asked her nicely that next time if she has an issue with me, if she could just take me to the side, talk like that in front of everybody else. I felt that that was rude, and it actually turned out to be helpful because she's like, oh, I'm sorry and apologize. Sorry, next time I was just having a bad day. So, she was having a bad day. I didn't know she was having a bad day, but she at least apologized. And since then and there, we haven't had any issues, and it didn't affect the group dynamic at all.
Okay, and the last one here is, does your response differ whether it is personal or professional? And if so, why do you think there are differences to your response? I think we've all pretty much covered that we have different responses, whether it's personal or professional. For me, it's different because professional it's my career. I don't want to create issues where I know that I have to go back and work with other people. If it's in my personal life, it's okay if I'm angry and like I don't talk to someone, like a friend, for a couple of days. That's not a big deal if it takes a little bit of time to get over something. But in professional life, you can't do that because you're going to be working with them potentially like the next day, and you can't just sort of have a team area like that, a team workplace where you're not communicating with people. One of the things that I try to do too is that if I'm having a bad day and I know that I'm just not in a good place, when we start at our team meeting, I will actually say that to them. I will say, like, I'm not having a good day, so if I'm acting off, it's nothing you guys have done, it's just me. Carrie Ann?
My response to that was, I feel like for me, work conflict is less personal and less emotional. Like I've never had like a personal conflict with somebody at work. It's always based on something that's happening within the team, like the way that we're doing something. People might have different views on that. And so I feel like I don't get really worked up about it because it's something that I feel like we can work through. Not to say, I mean, for a lot of people, stuff can get really personal and emotional when it is, even if it is work related. But I think at work too, sometimes I have the ability to, because I don't feel as emotionally charged in that situation, it can be easier to have that empathy. And like some of you said, it can be easier to be like, wow, they must be having a really bad day. Sometimes I feel it's easier to do at work than it is sometimes in your personal life where you feel more attacked because it's sort of, you're more vulnerable.
I totally agree. Holly?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you both. I don't know, I feel like personal conflict is obviously more emotional. Um, with that, obviously, I tend to act more like myself. I mean, I still get super anxious. If it's someone that I'm not like super like close with, but obviously if it's someone like part of my family or someone that's been in my life for a while, I think it's definitely a lot different how I would handle and approach that. And yeah, with professional conflict, I shy away from that. I think that communicating at work should be professional. I work with a lot of girls and I work with a lot of catty girls, a lot of different behaviors, different personalities, friends with every single one of them. But I mean, when you do catch one of them on a bad day, you just never know what you're going to walk into in the break room. And I've seen it myself, and it's just not professional. It's just something that I try to shy away from, and I don't want really anything to do with it. Um, I've cut people out of my life that were personal to me that I thought were toxic to me and my family. I mean, there's this girl at work who, tries to be friends with me outside of work, but I just know that we would never get along, and she's super toxic to a lot of the girls that we work with. So I definitely, I have a professional relationship with her, and that's about it. Just because I know that like I'm gonna see them, I know the people that I have to like separate like professional to personal. So it's definitely yeah, a different approach when it's the two of them.
Monica?
Yeah, I feel like I kind of already answered these, but I feel that personal and professional situations are like conflict are completely different. Obviously, for myself, in professional situations, I deal with conflict as professional as I can. And I mean, I avoid it. I don't try to get myself in conflicts. I've seen it at work, and I don't see any professional, and it kind of it bothers me because I kind of expect that all of us, we're here to work, we're here with each other 8 hours of the day. We need to find a way to resolve these issues and and not take it personal either, because okay, yeah, someone's having a bad day or something's happening, but I mean, we all need to find a way to communicate with each other and find a solution, and not on our emotions at work. And I think that's why it's important to have like, I don't know, group meetings or before you start work, or I'm having a bad day. I'm not taking it out on you. It's just something personal with me. And I think that's kind of helpful to let everybody know and not feel so and so is like being, mean today because of this, but they have no idea that that person's just having a bad day because of personal issues. So I think that's why personal and professional conflict situations are different.
Tanya?
I don't know really what to say because I agree with everything that was said already, and I believe that it's the emotional connection. Like can really relate to that, how I feel more secure with people that I'm close to. So knowing that there's a conflict and it's almost like that feeling that that person is still going to be there and just say, oh, it was just a thing, whatever, we'll get over it. We've had this relationship for so long already. They'll be there tomorrow. And then I feel like, in the professional realm, there is, the task, and it's not as personal, and it's more, a lot of the conflicts are around the tasks. Sometimes it is around advocating for a person, and I just feel like you're less vulnerable. are more vulnerable, I guess I should say, in a work environment than you would be with someone that you're close to.
Okay, so for this section, I'll read out the questions, and then what we're going to do is just raise your hand if you want to comment, and then I'll just pick people, okay? So the first one is identify some of the challenges in running groups via technology. So Tanya?
I really wanted to hear what Monica had to say, and I did not hear anything because it kept cutting out, and it was difficult to know when you should jump in and say, Monica, we can't hear you. So I think that is definitely an issue with technology. And that can cause some difficulty in the group, as well as, maybe the telephone, same type of thing with a teleconference with more than 3 people. If the group leader is not directing who should be talking, there can be a lot of crosstalk and people talking over each other, making it difficult to hear.
Holly?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Tanya. I think, having that connection and just not being able to get through or not being able to hear someone is definitely a challenge. I also think that the tone of voice through either texting or, through a computer, it might not be the same as what we see in person, and people may take it the wrong way. More so like texting, I think that if you say something, it can come off, different than what they actually meant, just because it's not personal, right? I also think that the failure to engage with each other. So instead of learning within a group environment, we're learning through a screen. So it just might not be as engaging.
Carrie Ann?
Yeah, those are all really good points. And Holly, I just wanted to add to what you were saying, and how some of the nonverbal communication is really lost through technology, especially even what we're doing here. It's like you can't read all of the little nuances of facial expressions and body language that you can in person. And I also think when you have a group together, there's like an energy that comes from like people being together, and you can't get that same feeling, like some kind of energetic feeling that you get when people aren't actually in the same room.
Monica?
I don't know. I guess we've been in this program long enough to know that doing things online definitely has its challenges, like people talking over each other, people being on time, and also arranging a specific time for everyone to meet can be a challenge too, just because everyone has different schedules, they have lots of stuff going on. So I find that can be a challenge. Having access to technology, technical difficulties can be a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to add a lot of the same points. I don't know what it is tonight, Monica, but seriously, every time you go to talk, you're like, your connection just dies, and we only get bits and pieces, but when you're not talking, your connection is fabulous. So I don't know what is going on tonight, but that just seems to be the way that it is. The other thing too is that with us, we've all been really respectful of each other, and we've waited for the other person to speak and put our hands up. But with some people and in some groups, you could have people that aren't going to be as respectful and will just start talking over other people. And if you're doing it like this through the computers, then you have no real way to silence them or to stop them from doing that, because it's not the same as being in a group setting in the same room where you can, say, okay, hang on, it's somebody else's turn, or that. Like, you might just have people talking all over each other. Are we good with that question? Okay, so the next one is describe some practical implications for running a group via technology. So some of the things that I had for that was for people that are in remote settings, or for times like during the pandemic, as we've seen, it's been helpful to have the technology there where we can still communicate with each other, but don't have to be in the same room with each other. Is there anybody else? Carrie Ann?
I agree with you. In relation to the next question about COVID as well, as I'm part of a psychotherapeutic group that's run out of Vancouver, and now our mentor is doing Zoom groups, and so now I get to go to her circle every single week, where normally I would only get to see her if I was in Vancouver, if I went to one of her workshops. So it's actually been really amazing that I get to be on a Zoom meeting with like 90 people that I haven't seen in a really long time. So, and some people are like in other parts of the world. So I think that's really a positive. And I think for some people that it might feel less threatening to do a group on technology, like people that maybe have really struggle with social interactions, it might feel a bit safer.
Holly?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Carrie. I feel like, the people that struggle with, talking face to face with people, or just, having that fear, I think that they would feel safe. I also think that, in regards to COVID, I know that's the next question, but, people who are working from home, they're not in big groups of people. They're not at that risk of getting sick. People who have underlying conditions, people who are chemo patients, people who have, those who are low immune systems, they're able to still work from home and not, go out in public in the fear of, getting sick and everything like that. So I also think that like more practical implications. Well, you guys kind of said it, just, choosing the best platforms when running a meeting, and something that's reliable. And I just want to also say, when this whole COVID thing did happen a few months ago, it was kind of cool. Our preschools obviously got shut down. Obviously everything got shut down, but they started doing preschool through Zoom, and it was like kind of like a more one-on-one. And I thought that was kind of cool. My son was, obviously all the kids are there, but there was a lot more one-on-one learning, and I can just definitely see his like learning abilities like come to light there. So even though he's not getting the social interaction with kids, face to face, he's still able to kind of, do it through technology, which is kind of like how, everything's kind of evolving anyways. So it was kind of cool to see. So
That's awesome about the daycares. I didn't know that daycares were doing like interactions through Zoom and stuff, because that's pretty cool. Anything else? Okay, so the next one we kind of talked about a little bit. It's discussed your experience in relation to COVID and the use of online technology to communicate in a group. I think for most of us, we've already been using the online technology, because we have had Tanya, who is in 100 miles, which is completely different from where the rest of us are in Kamloops. So right from the very beginning, we've had to use Zoom or Flipgrid, or not Flipgrid, pardon me, but something else to communicate, instead of being, because we're usually not in the same room together with each other. Does anybody else have anything? Holly?
yeah, I definitely agree with you with the whole COVID. Like, I don't think that my experience has changed at all over the last few months, because I'm an essential worker, and it's not like I got sent home to work from home. And obviously our school is online, so we've always like used platforms in order to, do our school projects. And I think that it's built our group, like a group dynamic. And I think um we're so used to it, but it's like seeing the rest of the world try to adapt to it. It's kind of interesting. Like even my friend Tamara, she works at an insurance firm downtown, and their whole company went to home based, and just them trying to do that transition. She's talking to me. There's less sick calls, obviously, like who's going to call in sick when they're at home on their computer, like, there's more productivity. And, she's saving money on childcare at the end of the day. So I think that there is some positive outcomes that come working from home. But I also think that there is some negative ones as well. And obviously going into mental health, we're going to see it a lot more. If this is going to be our new norm, for example, like people feeling isolated and reduced socialization. So, there's going to be more people who will become depressed and everything like that. So I definitely think that's something that we're going to be observing here.
Monica?
I felt that at the beginning it was challenging to use technology. I mean, we are all used to using online environment, but we used to meet in person for group activities. We had when we did the role playing. So I found it like interacting in person helped me when it came to that type of assignment because we were in person, like as if we were in that setting. But now we had to change it to be in like via Zoom, which made it a little bit harder. But I also feel that it kind of took me out of my comfort zone, and interacting in front of a computer isn't as bad as it used to be. I hope you guys could hear me.
Yeah, it kind of, I don't know, seriously, I don't know what it is. I caught most of it. It basically, it sounds like you took out of your comfort zone when you went on to Zoom and you're better in a social interaction, like when you're in person. Is that what I got?
Yeah, I think you missed a little bit of it, but there's like a storm brewing out here, and I feel like my internet is cutting out. I think Tanya's in the right spot out there.
We heard you perfect that time, by the way.
Yeah. For anybody that doesn't know, Tanya is actually on Monica's porch. And I'm a few streets down from Monica and Tanya, but for whatever reason, inside Monica's house, not going so good.
It's cold outside.
So the last one is just discuss why some clients might prefer technological groups. And for that one, I was thinking some people that have different anxiety disorders, social anxiety, or even, I believe it's agoraphobia is the one where you don't want to leave your house. So anybody like that, it would be better to be obviously in their home and just do things over the computer. Anyone else? Monica?
Yeah, I think I said pretty much the same. People who with anxiety might find it easier to communicate online. People who maybe have certain disabilities as well. Easier to use online technology. I know that there's nothing better than the comfort of your own home. So the online environment, like online at home in my house where it's nice and warm.
Okay, if nobody's got anything else regarding anything we talked about tonight, I think we're good to wrap it up. I just want to say I forgot to mention at the beginning that we did have a discussion offline as a group about anything that we wanted to change or anything that we weren't happy about from the last group. So that did occur offline before we started this group. So if that's everything, then I'm going to stop the recording.